Well, here's a question for you. What famous American document starts off with these words? We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Well, if you said the Declaration of Independence, you'd be wrong. Those are the opening words to the United States Constitution. Well, let me let you think about it for a second. What are the opening words, probably the most famous document in American history? The Declaration of Independence starts off with these words: when in the course of human events. Well, here's another fun question. Do we have unalienable rights or inalienable rights? Well, according to the finished published text, we have unalienable rights. However, in Jefferson's drafts and what is inscribed in his memorial, we have inalienable rights. There's no record of why the text was changed, but it was. Well, let's take a look at how the Declaration made it into existence, and then we'll take a little closer look at the document itself. So on July 11th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Roger R. Livingston are appointed by the Second Continental Congress to form a committee to draft a Declaration of Independence. And Jefferson, at the request of the committee, drafts a declaration between June 12th and June 27th. During that time, his original draft was reviewed and revised by the committee. Largely his words, though. On June 28th, the draft is approved by the committee, and the Declaration of Independence is actually read in Congress for the first time. Between July 1st and July 4th, Congress will debate and revise the Declaration of Independence. But on July 2nd, Congress actually declares independence just as the British fleet and army are arriving in New York. On July 4th, 1776, Congress will adopt the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia in what was at the time the Pennsylvania State House. We know that as Independence Hall today. July 5th, John Hancock, the President of the Continental Congress, will send copies of the Declaration down to New Jersey and to Delaware for them to review. And then on July 6th, the Pennsylvania Evening Post will print the first newspaper rendition of the Declaration of Independence for people to actually read it. On July 8th, 1776, the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia is read by Colonel John Nixon. It took place in Independence Square, which is a large area on the east side of Independence Hall. On July 19th, Congress orders the Declaration of Independence officially inscribed and signed by the members. And then on August 2nd, the delegates will actually sign the copy of the Declaration of Independence. So we celebrate July 4th as Independence Day. Well, the reality is July 2nd is probably Independence Day when we declared our independence. July 4th is when Congress actually adopts the document called the Declaration of Independence as our document that we're going to send. And then August 2nd is when we actually signed it. So if you're thinking it was when we signed, nope. If you're thinking when we declared, nope. It's when we actually adopted the Declaration as the official document to send to England. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and look at the structure of the document. Now, first of all, it is a legal document, and it's written in such a way as to present a case. So there's an introduction, there's an argument, there are facts or evidence for the case, and finally there's the resolution, which is the Declaration of Separation itself. So let's look at the introduction first, and it reads as follows. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Well, the first thing the authors did was to set the stage for what's about to happen and to present themselves in a civilized manner to the rest of the world. They're going to separate from Great Britain and assume the rights and position of a sovereign country, able to make their own rules. And finally, they say it's their duty and it's their right thing to do this in an open forum where the rest of the world can hear their case. So next is the argument. And I'm going to actually break this into two parts. And so here's the first part. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, government are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such a form to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. All men are created equal. Well, this phrase is going to come under great scrutiny during the Civil War, or depending on where you live, the war between the states. Abraham Lincoln campaigned on these words on his platform to abolish slavery. His argument was that men aren't created equal in terms of all being alike, but rather that all men deserve equal footing or standing in the world and before their Creator. So back to the word. It says that all men have rights that cannot be taken away. Governments are formed by men to secure and protect those rights, and that if the government fails to do so, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish that government. And if a new government is formed, it must adhere to these inalienable rights and to serve to protect them. Now here's the second part. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while the evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. So this section opens with the word prudence. In other words, we don't do this lightly. Careful thought has been given to this matter. They then go on to reinforce that point and say, you don't change government on the whim, and that mankind is typically disposed to put up with a lot and will tolerate some amount of injustice. But when there comes a point when we just can't take it anymore, and we've hit that point with the King of Great Britain. They use the term despot when speaking of King George III. Now, a despot, if you don't know, is one that holds absolute power and typically holds it in a cruel or oppressive way. So that's what they thought of this guy. So they've made their argument, and now they follow up with the facts or the evidence of the case. Now, when we were taught about the Revolutionary War and the Declaration of Independence in school, what were we taught as the main reason for the separation, for this Declaration of Independence? Taxation without representation. Those are the three words that were drilled into our heads. Well, they had 29 separate grievances, and taxation without representation is the 17th grievance listed. The fact of the matter is, for years, they had been stonewalled by the king in their efforts to be treated as equal citizens of Great Britain. He repeatedly refused to hear their complaints and oftentimes did nothing about them, or worse, he would punish them for speaking up. So here are a few of the facts of their case. He did things like refusing to pass laws unless people would agree to give up their right of representation, or he would hold legislative meetings at inconvenient places that were hard to get to, simply to wear people out or even discourage them from even attending. He would simply dissolve houses of representation whenever the people were unhappy with what he had done. He refused to accept rulings made by judges, and he would force them to comply with his will, and if they didn't, he would fire them. He opened new government offices, brought in swarms of officers to harass the people and eat their food. He housed large standing armies, even in times of peace among them. And when individuals of these armies would commit murder, they would put on mock trials and find them innocent. He even brought in mercenaries from other countries for the sole purpose of instilling fear by killing people. He would let them trade with other parts of the world. And finally, he imposed taxes without their consent. So you get the idea. As I said, they had 29 grievances listed. Then they go on to say that every step of the way they've appealed to the king, who in their words behaved like a tyrant. And finally they say that they brought their case before the citizens of Great Britain. They call them their brethren, calling upon their sense of native justice and magnanimity, only to have their words fall on deaf ears. They're left with no other course but to announce their separation, to hold them as the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. The document ends with the actual declaration of their independence from Great Britain. And it reads as follows: "We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiances to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." So our Declaration of Independence was sent all over the world when it was signed. Portions of it have been used by more than half of the 192 countries that are now part of the United Nations to declare to the world their independence from another country. It's a great document. It's a relatively short document. It's only 1 page long. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to do so. Thanks for watching. Hey, as always, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click the thumbs up button down below. It really does help. If you'd like to be notified when we publish new content, go ahead and click my channel icon to subscribe. And finally, while you're here, take some time to check out some of our other videos. Have a great day and get out there and do something new today.